Sombra, due to her incredibly high ban rate, is getting reworked again for the last time, we promise. And while on one hand, it's really good that they're using ban data to inform decisions on what heroes and maps specifically for the next season where there's map voting to rework next, they have to be careful not to just change it in order to get the ban rate down, but not improve gameplay. That would actually be a worse world than Sombra banned all the time, because the game might actually play better without her. Instead, I think we can talk about some solutions on how they can utilize especially the perk system in order to make Sombra into a more interesting character that isn't hated by everyone, and when she's in the game at all, isn't super oppressive and is fun to play. Can we make a win-win-win? I think we can.
I'm by winning. I win here and I win there. Now what?
First of all, let's describe the ban system we have, because it's going to create this kind of data point. Sombra is specifically the kind of hero that is going to meet at an intersection to create high ban data. Whereas in a game like Marvel Rivals, the heroes that get banned are either the top meta performing hero overall for the entire game with the most broken mechanics, or the most individually oppressive. So for the majority of ranks, a character like Spider-Man comes to mind, but at the higher ranks, it's going to bias more towards either the strongest ultimates or the highest skill expression heroes like Hela, Hawkeye, things like that. For an Overwatch equivalent, when we try to ban heroes, often it's going to be a very specific matchup just for us. As a Ramatra player, I hate going up against Zen and maybe even Ana. And if you're an Ashe player and you have any chance of trying to compete on a map like Havana, you have to ban Widow, or you probably will just auto lose if that Widow player is of your equal skill level. So often we'll see these little cul-de-sacs of bans based on the matchup and map that we're in. However, Sombra has the unfortunate position of pissing off everybody all at once. Because while I do think the ban system in Overwatch far exceeds what Marvel Rivals is, because it's just so random and haphazard what gets banned in Marvel from game to game, because you can't have mutual bans on both sides, the next runner-up to fill that slot is going to be something. So the more likelihood that the character is in your top 3, even as a lower tier of importance vote, the more likely they're going to be expressed in bans across all of the games. Because there might be a big consensus, like we gotta ban Widow, we gotta ban Doomfist, whatever, that gets voted out already. It's not necessarily that Sombra's hated the most, she gets banned the most. So ultimately, as we go through this, let's try to monitor it, because us as a community, we might get a little bit more intelligent about our second and third tier placings on bans and get better at it, let's say, and different heroes might even populate differently as time goes on. But I think the early data is pretty overwhelming that Sombra's rate is like, so I didn't even think any given hero would ever have that high of a ban rate, so obviously something has to change, right? All right, now let's look more specifically at her kit and playstyle and why it's so bad for so many different other players. Sombra has the flexibility to be a dive backline assassin, which is oppressive against some squishy characters, particularly like supports, but even like a Widowmaker with lower health doesn't really like to have to fight up against a character that comes out of stealth with a insta-kill combo. And the problem with stealth as a mechanic is that every player that interacts with Sombra struggles to keep track of where she is. There's a lot of mobility characters in the game, some of them even with devastating burst damage, but you tend to see them coming at least. So the combination that Sombra can go stealth to run around, then also have a big burst of movement, well, it's kind of problematic for even tracking her. Then on top of that, she disables so many things and has easy CC. It's easy to target, it's easy to hide with, it's easy to cast, it's easy to stack. And as we've learned in Overwatch 1 with 6v6 and so many years of 6 players of CC characters stacking into one, the ease of landing a CC makes the consecutive crowd control abilities even easier to hit after that point. Because once you land the hack on the Doomfist, then most Anas can land asleep and a nade on him, or Cassidy with his nade. But those exact projectiles are attached to characters that don't have mobility. And for the mobility dive character to have to assess where they are, it's much easier to manage. Especially, I think a lot of Wrecking Ball players might know this, because you get so much extra health that just getting hacked by Sombra alone is not enough to counter you, because it wears off after a few seconds and your health is so high that you kind of don't care. One of my favorite things to happen to me as Ram is when a Sombra's focusing me. I'm like, I'm in Nemesis form with all my health and I do lots of damage, so what are you even accomplishing here? So the ease of execution of the disable, and as well, the assassin playstyle is not so difficult either. The floor of the output of the character is relatively high, and the skill requirement to do it is a bit low in both cases. And Sombra at the moment is leveraging too much of that easy factor, as outplaying her tends to be skill sets that you learn as you go up the ranks, which is a bad thing, I think. Now, a quick pause here to talk about the personality of bans in this game. While they might solve the Sombra ban problem, something to look out for is a character like Genji, because ban data alone doesn't necessarily mean that the character is outperforming. Because I think if you look at Sombra's pick rate and win rate, that isn't necessarily the case. And Genji kind of similar. He's typically played by specialists who invest a lot of time in him because his skill requirement floor is higher, which means his output floor is lower. Like, it can get more easily completely shut out of a game if he misplays. In a game like Marvel Rivals, Spider-Man gets banned a lot, and he's not necessarily the hardest to deal with character, but because his movement is so insane, and the lower skill tier players are gonna struggle to have the mechanics to be able to react to Spider-Man. He's way more severe in movement than Genji, but a lot of players have the similar complaints in Overwatch, where tracking a double jumping Genji is very annoying and difficult for them to deal with. So let's just look out for that as a knock-on cause, as we're always going to have characters that are going to have outmoded ban rates, I think, especially newer characters that are launching strong on purpose, or just characters that are obnoxious in their kit playstyle, and there's kind of no other way around it other than to ban them. But we're trying to fix Sombra today, and I think they might be able to do it. Now, I don't want them to lower Sombra's ban rate by simply just making her too difficult to play. However, I do think she should have more skill trade-offs to actualize her value, because at the moment I feel that most players feel if the enemy swaps to Sombra, she gets instant easy value by just holding right click and disabling something. That playstyle where you defend your team with a disable is super annoying. There's very little skill to it, and there's just too much counter swap ability in Sombra baked in with her neutral game. However, I think they have an opportunity to really leverage the perk system here and make her be a character that comes online later in the game, because characters that maybe their kits are naturally less strong altogether, they're going to make less impact when they immediately get onto the battlefield, which is the most obnoxious thing, right? Where they swap to Sombra, you're like, oh my god, we didn't ban it. Then you instantly get CC stacked, and now your entire game plan needs to change. If they reduce the effectiveness of that a bit, but instead put power into her perks, namely forcing her to make decisions with them. Is she a backline assassin? Can she also heal her team? Does she go stealth? Is she about disabling the enemy's aggression? I don't think she should be able to flexibly do all of these things, like vaguely. Like, define what the character is and let her lean into that strength, and maybe make her pick from one or the other in any given game. This will give Sombra some personality, as well as, importantly, some limitations, as well as growth through the game. Like, they're gonna have to grind through Sombra being a little weaker in the normal neutral game, rather than easily knowing they can just counter swap and have an easy time. Ultimately, this kind of disable character, if you're going to have any amount of her in the game be good, it needs to be something you earn, which is what's kind of magical about the perk system, is that they have that opportunity to do that. There's some other heroes that I think do this in the game. I'll give like one decent example and then one like bad example maybe. While a lot of players in Overwatch 2 hate Mauga ever being played, the truth is his neutral functions this way, where in a normal ranked game, he takes too much finesse to really get going, but the reason why he starts to look oppressive at the higher tiers is once they get up to that ignite perk, where they can run through the enemy and auto-ignite them, that's a game-changing aggressive playstyle now all of a sudden. While perhaps Mauga still needs to be relooked at or reworked, I think that was kind of a good way for them to make perks give him the power, rather than him just kind of lean into his anti-tank gameplay that he does too well. Another one might be Roadhog, for a bad reason, where I think the pent-up perk that gives him extra take a breather when his trap is exploded is really, really BS. But because it's so BS, you can kind of outplay your counters a bit. And that perhaps is a bit of a danger too. If the perk is too good, then specialists are really going to be able to maximize it. But ultimately, what do we want? I think better is a world where specialist Sombras are still excelling because they master the trade-offs of the perk system, as opposed to Sombra just being a thing that anybody can play, go invis, get a free backline kill, or disable an aggressive tank. I think that's the problem. And importantly, this is an area where I think Overwatch can distinguish itself from Marvel Rivals and lean into its own design principles. If Rivals is a game about getting easy BS value by looking in a direction, Overwatch should kind of be the opposite of that. And I'll just be honest, like, I think if they don't handle this well, and then Sombra becomes more expensive to ban for some reason, and then she starts going through, but there's a Sombra in loads of games, like, I don't know if the quality of the game increases if there's more Sombra. Like, that's a thing that they have to remember. A high ban rate might just mean that the hero design is not good. And for me, I think it's a better world where you have a character like Widowmaker, who is very much hated in the community by lots of players, but if she gets banned on her good maps, oh well, seems fair to me, because sometimes you will get a match where a Widow ban doesn't go through. And I think it's more important that the characters can do the thing they should do effectively with skill execution, but at risk of maybe not seeing ranked play a lot. Like, that's not the worst solution. The worst solution is we have to play with mechanics that suck. Like, the problem isn't banning the things that suck. The problem is having to play them. You guys remember, I try to be the Overwatch Lorax out here. I speak for the Plats, okay? I don't want oppressive gameplay to be forced into the game just to try to even out the ban rates. That's not necessarily what we want. I think she should have to invest into one of the pillars of her gameplay through the perk system at the expense of investing in the other. So be it her stealth, her disable, or her burst damage, because once she invests in that lane, then you could potentially counterpick and adjust to her. Let me know your thoughts on how to fix Sombra in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to click subscribe and the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito. I'll see you guys next time.